Hello, friends. Welcome. Caught me chewing the last bit of a pecan sandy, trying to get my dinner in before the show. So I just found out I've been fasting, and I was watching Father Chris Alar, and he was explaining Vatican II a little bit better to me. And so, because of my age, I am exempt from the requirement to fast. Now I have to abstain from meat on Fridays, but I'm not. I don't have to follow the fasting rules. Well, so that's great. So I can have a little bit more to eat. I guess they figure us old farts need our calories. I don't know, or our carbs. Hello, tofu. Welcome. So tonight is the fiction post-apocalyptic book club, and we've been working on the Survivalist series with from A American, and I just did a forward or a posted a link or one of his videos, one of his shorts, a minute and a half, about the possibility that there was a Soviet or Russian, I keep saying Soviet because I worked against the Soviet Union, but there was a Russian satellite that blew up, and we're trying to get confirmation of that. So if you look up in the very top of the comments here, what you'll find is I put in a copy paste of an announcement from the Ministry of Defense in Poland. Remember that Moscow is 9 hours ahead of me here in Austin. So right now it's, so if we use military time, 20, which is 8 p.m. So it's 2,000 hours, 2,000 hours. You add the 9 hours. Hello, Roaming Pepper, Pete. How are you? So if you add 9 hours to that, which is Moscow time, that would make it 2,900. So then from that 2,900, you subtract 2,400, which is 24 hours in a day. So it's 5 o'clock Moscow time right now, about 4 or 3 o'clock in Ukraine. And so if you look up above, the Polish Minister of Defense during the daytime today, their daytime, put up anti-tank barriers along all the roads coming into Poland from both Kaliningrad and from Belarus. So they're expecting something. So right now we are in the day of the 1-year anniversary of the military exercises, live fire military exercises being conducted. So don't be surprised if we don't hear something alarming during the course of this hour. And let's pray that it's nothing drastic. All kinds of different things going on. But anyhow, let's get into the book. What a fantastic series. We are so blessed to have, we had Steve Smith and his Stonemont series, and we have Angry American Chris with his Escaping Home, some people call it, series, or the Survivalist series. And what a great, rich group of characters. And when I interviewed Chris, I don't know how many of you saw that interview on a Monday night interview, but you can, it's called Meet the Author in My Lives. What a phenomenal guy. He actually works with the Special Forces during Operation Robin Sage, which is the concluding exercise for Special Forces that they do every year. They've been doing it every year since about 1962. But for some reason, whenever it happens, all of a sudden the internet's just a flurry with imminent martial law, which is crazy. But that's how he gets a lot of the information that he puts in here concerning Sarge. And then he's got Doc, Mike, and Ted are the three Special Forces guys plus Sarge from the 101st. And so those four characters are that military ensemble, the kind of, we met in book one as the hero was Morgan was coming home from what appears to be an EMP strike. So so far the series is, book one was focusing on Morgan's trip from it is Morgan, right? Do I have my books right? I hope I have my books right. I'm trying to think now. Is Morgan? No, Wyatt is the main character in the Stonemont series. Morgan is correct. So Morgan experiences an EMP, grabs his get home bag out of the back of his car. He's heading south on the Florida Peninsula, trying to get home. Runs into Jessica, and then they run into Thad, and then those three meet up with Sarge and his crew. And then from Sarge and his crew, they all break up and go their own individual ways. And Morgan gets home. So, and that was getting home. And then from then, we've been developing, Morgan at home with his family, the DHS camp that is not as nice as we would hope that a DHS camp would be. That it's basically somewhat akin to a Gasudarstveni Upravljamoy Lager, which is a gulag, and so forced manual labor. And so we find out later that Jess has been put into the gulag. We find that out in book 3, and so Ted and Mike are doing a reconnaissance of DHS. Because there have been some encounters with DHS. There's been a deputy sheriff who lived in the same community with Morgan, kind of defected over to the DHS. They've been trying to pressure all of the, let's call it Morganville residents to voluntarily go into the DHS center. They don't, they attack. So what they do is, and this is quite common, they employ a third-party group, which is another preparedness, what you might call, hello, Dan, a vigilante type of a group, preparedness group, and they employ them to try to drive by attacking the citizens. Then the citizens seek protection, so they seek the protection from the DHS that really wants to enslave them. And so now we've got all that happening, and then we've got the attacks between DHS onto Morgan and his ensemble of people. And, then now in book 4, it's primarily focusing on Morgan and his family and his friends, Danny and his wife and a couple others, had to vacate their homes and move into some cabins in order to avoid the attacks because Morgan's daughter was shot, Luann, was shot in the leg during one of the attacks. And so they moved to these cabins to escape the attacks. They're doing their attack on DHS. And in book 3, we learn a couple new friends of Jess's. She's got Mary, who is one of her friends. And then she's got Fred. And Fred hooks up. She volunteers to be on trucks to go out scavenging for things. And she hooks up with a guy by the name of Eric. Eric, it appears, is a good guy. He has some sort of a conscience and conscience, I should say. And so here we are in book 4. So let's take what I like is the amount of reality and great prepping tips that are put into each one of the books. So in volume 1, it gives us a fairly detailed list of all the stuff that Morgan has in his get home bag. We get some detailed ideas about things about what weapons to carry and how to use them. Thad has his sawed-off double-barrel shotgun, and the different things that different things can be used for. As we go through the books, we constantly get more information about wild edibles and the wildlife that are edible in the Florida region, swamp region, I guess we could call it. And although it's not particularly true for everywhere, they've been eating cattails and making it into flour. They've been eating alligator. Now, squirrel, I think, is common throughout the entire U.S. And so in this book, I believe it is, might be at the end of book 3, they talk about how to field dress a squirrel. Let me see my notes here. No, okay. So some of the main notes that I have from this book that I wanted to share with you. Gosh, these glasses are dirty. Do a little bit of cleaning work here. Maybe I can read my notes. So in chapter 2, he's talking about two things. Number one, we get a whole bunch of ideas on different vegetables that are available in the river and swamp areas and some of the other areas there in southern Florida. So vegetables that can be used to make stews and soups and stuff like that, as well as what can be ground into flour to make pancakes or to make biscuits or something like that. We also get a lesson, very detailed lesson, by the way, in chapter 2, Thad. So in either book 2 or book 3, Thad's family gets killed by the DHS. So his son and his wife are both executed by the DHS. Thad isn't there. Thad comes home, has to bury his wife and child, and then he goes looking for Morgan because he wants to hook up with them. And so in book 3, Morgan kind of catches up Thad catches up with Morgan. And then here we are in book 4. So Thad is kind of a member of the family now. And so he has a lot of great experience. He ends up being the expert at cooking. He ends up being the expert at soap making. In chapter 2, we get a detailed explanation on how to make soap, how to render lard. One person, LG. I would say that one squirrel is one meal for one person. So yeah, you're probably going to make it into a soup or a stew to make it a little bit more, make it last a little bit longer. I am a proponent of the fact that in a survival situation, I'm going to say 90% of what we're going to be eating in a post-apocalyptic world is going to be soups, stews, and casseroles. And I think that's just the way, if we look back in history at the Vikings, if we look at the medieval ages, they would roast their meat, but most of the vegetables and things like that were boiled and turned into either a soup, or they would take them out of the boiling broth and make that into a vegetable broth and then serve that separately or serve it as a soup or stew. There's a fantastic YouTube channel called Schnelllecker, Schnelllecker. And it's a German channel. And but the guy there, everything if you do closed caption, it'll translate it into English for you. He's a German, and every day he puts out a different video on great soups, stews, and casseroles that were eaten throughout Europe and have been modified to modern techniques. There's another one, and it's called Eating History, I believe. But the guy does a fantastic job of recreating even what Roman soldiers ate on the march and things like that. So he does very historical cooking and shows what people were eating back during those days. Another one is Charles Townsend. Now, he primarily focuses on 17th century cooking in the U.S. With things that were eaten by the colonists during the pre-revolutionary times up through the Revolution. And so one of the other things I'd like to point out to people is people say we're going to hunt to survive after SHTF. So we'll just kill some birds. Well, dove season is 2 weeks, 2, maybe 3 weeks here in Texas, one in the spring, one in the fall, depending on whether the dove are migrating north or migrating south. And so one dove cannot feed one person a meal. You're probably going to need 2 or 3 dove per person per meal. So let's assume 1 meal a day and you have a family of 4. So, okay, let's be on the small side and say 8 dove will feed a family of 4 for 1 meal. So that's 8 shotgun shells. So now if you're going to just eat dove for 2 weeks during their migratory season, so 8 shells times 14 days is 112 shells if my math in my mind is correct. So that's assuming you're a perfect shot and you kill one every time you pull the trigger. So that's 112 shells to feed for 2 weeks. So for the 4 weeks of their migratory process during the year, that's going to be 224 shells if you're a perfect shot. So, I don't think you're going to have enough ammunition to feed your family. Um, that's it. Thank you, Little Lone Prepper, Tasting History. Fantastic channel. But anyhow, so I'm afraid we're not going to be doing that much hunting as far as a survival mode. Now trapping, I think, will probably be a lot better. And so if you can get a book on trapping or snares or something like that, I think you'll be far better off than trying to shoot something with either a rifle or a shotgun. Okay. So in chapter 2, Thad does detailed instructions on how to make soap. In chapter 3, I can't read my note. Jamie and Perez. Don't know. I know what it is. So Sarge and the group have gone to a National Guard unit that has escaped, and they've set up camp, and they're trying to take care of a whole bunch of residents who have escaped to this campsite, this state park, with them. And so Sarge and his group go in. They get a whole bunch of MREs and stuff delivered, and so they tell Captain Sheffield and the lieutenant there they want to use their people in an attack on the DHS plan. So they asked for 2 people to go with them to back up Mike and Ted as they're doing the reconnaissance of the DHS plane. And Jamie and Perez are the 2 that go with him. Now, Perez evidently has a whole bunch of combat experience. Then he left the active duty and went to the National Guard. And he's one of those quiet guys, that just, those are the guys that you really want around. This is a quiet, stealthy expert at what he does. And then Jamie is one of those people who has to prove that she's as good as everybody else. And so she goes out of her way to try to prove that she's just as effective, just as good a shot. As a matter of fact, they say that she's the best shot in the unit. So she's going with them as kind of a sniper. And so Jamie and Perez have this little tete-a-tete going. And so the 4 of them go do their scout work over the DHS camp in anticipation of the for the assault. It depends on how good a shot you are with the slingshot, Dan. I have 2 of them as final backups in case nothing else happens. I have not done an awful lot of practice with it. It's not a very long range thing. I know that you're going to have to be closer than you would typically be with a shotgun to shoot a bird. And birds are relatively small. Now, I think with practice you probably could. It would require a lot of practice for me, but yeah, you probably could if you're using. Now, typically with, let's say, double-aught buckshot, for a 12-gauge double-aught buckshot, you're typically going to get around 12 pellets. No, I'm sorry, 7 pellets. 7 pellets, 7 double-aught pellets per shell. So that would give you 7 rounds. What I've done is I buy the .222 caliber pellets for an air rifle, and that's what I'm going to use for my slingshot. So that's a lot cheaper than buying 12-gauge shells. You don't have to pay for the powder and the primer and the case and everything else. Now, if I were going to have a reload kit, I would probably have a reload kit for 12-gauge. But I'm not spending any money on reload right now. I'm spending my money on ammunition instead. So that's just where I am. Let me see here. Oh, wow. Thank you. I'll have to check that one out, Little Lone Prepper. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, then in chapter 9, once again, Thad comes to the rescue and he teaches everybody how to cook alligator. He makes alligator stew. Then he teaches the group how to collect starches from different plants in the river. And then he teaches one of I think it's all three of the daughters, how to make rat traps. And the rat traps can also be used for squirrels. And then there's discussion and training in how to have alternatives to toilet paper in case you run out of toilet paper. And then in chapter 14, Thad teaches everybody how to skin and dress and cook a squirrel. So that's kind of, all the learning that goes on there. Now, along with that, we've got the assault on the DHS camp. And it's a very ingenious way that it happens. So Sarge, Mike, Ted, Captain Sheffield, Lieutenant Livingston, the National Guard troops go up in Hummers and military trucks, and they pull up to the gate, and this is what we were trained to do in military intelligence. So they just acted like they were supposed to be there. Now, theoretically, DHS is running the show. The military is the enemy of DHS. So they just go up and say, we're here to help you. So what had happened is one of the guys had escaped and wanted to sell information about the camp to these two guys that Morgan had met when he was escaping and coming back. And so he sells that information to the two people, to the survivors of the attack where Morgan escaped. And they are meeting with Morgan and Sarge to give them the information so that they can plan their stuff on attacking the DHS camp. Then they get captured. The two who gave the information, the map and everything to Sarge and Morgan get captured, and they're tortured in the DHS camp in the same cell block as Jamie, Fred, and Mary. Oh, I need to go back to that. So I'm not sure. Was it in book 3 or book 4? But Jamie, or is it Jessica? Jamie? Jess. Anyhow, she gets raped. And so they want to get even. So in book 4, Fred had learned from her father how to take tobacco and turn tobacco into a concentrate that can be added to a drink, and it's almost an instant heart attack. And so what they do is they make this concoction in the kitchen, and this pure nicotine substance, tar-like substance, and they mix it in with the coffee that the guard who raped Jessica, they mix it in his coffee. He has a heart attack. Everything's going good. They catch Mary. Mary gets tortured, gives up the ghost on Jessica and Fred, Jessica and Fred. And so all three of them get put in this real bad concentration type of individual cells, solitary confinement type things. And then they're semi-tortured, trying to get information from them. But they're getting ready to execute them. And as a matter of fact, the day that Sarge and the group show up to the camp is the day that's scheduled for the execution of the three. So, you get right there and they kind of save the day, so to speak. So Eric is trying to figure out a way in the meantime, here in book 4, of how to help the three of them break out, because he's fallen in love with Fred. So he wants to save his girlfriend, and he's trying to figure out how he can cut holes in the fence, move a truck, get a truck ready, have all of the MREs and everything else necessary for them to escape. And then he's going to go in with the other guards and rescue them. So he goes in to do the rescue, kills the two guards, and that's just as Sarge and the crew pull up to the front gate. So they pull up to the front gate, and they just act like they're supposed to be there. And Sarge says, hey, you've got a traitor. He calls for the commandant of the camp to come out to meet him. He says, you've got a traitor in your group. Here's the information that they gave us. We have to start an investigation. And so the commanders of the camp is kind of curious. He says, well, wait a minute, aren't we enemies? Isn't the Army and DHS enemies? He says, oh no, we're on your side. Here's the information we have. So with all the information he has, he kind of proves that he knows a lot more than he should about the inside. and that there could be somebody who is a traitor to the group. So the whole group moves in, and he convinces the camp commander to have all of his people come in, lay their weapons down because they don't know who the traitor is, and they don't want him starting spraying all the people. National Guard takes over all the weapons. Then they lock up they go in to check out the confinement area. Eric's there. Eric shoots Sarge. Sarge shoots Eric. Both of them are wearing bulletproof vests, and Eric gets shot in the arm, I believe, and Sarge gets shot in the hip, and it just luckily hits his titanium total hip replacement, and so it doesn't do that much damage. But the two of them are then wounded, and so Fred's trying to tell everybody, don't shoot, he's a good guy, he's here to help us, and everything else. So they finally get all of them out. They lock up the camp commander and the deputy camp commander. Then they announce to all the prisoners, detainees, evacuees, whatever you want to call them, that there's a new show in town, that they're free to go do whatever they want. There won't be any more of whatever it is. So that's, and so the end of the book is Sarge and his crew needs to take a vacation because, Sarge is wounded. He needs to recuperate. The group needs a little bit of downtime from all the stuff that's been going on. And Fred, Mary, and Jessica are all moving into a home in Morganville, well, let's call it Morgan's neighborhood, that was evacuated by somebody else. And the whole crew is moving back to their homes. And when they get back to their homes, of course, all the people who have been going, the Golden Horde is what it's called in most prepper terminology. The people who are evacuating the large metropolitan areas have totally destroyed all of the homes. And so they are in the process of trying to rebuild their homes. Now, one of the things we learned is that Morgan did have a total solar system. And so he has hooked that up onto a trailer so he can make the battery and the inverters and everything else highly mobile, and set up the panels wherever he is to collect it so that they have some sense of electricity. That helps them also with the radios. And so at the end of the book here, at the end of book 4, what we have is the DHS camp is now under the rule of Captain Sheffield, Lieutenant Livingston, and the National Guard. They're bringing in all the other people into the DHS camp that there were evacuees at the other post, where they came from. Those other people that evacuated with the National Guard, they're coming into the DHS camp. They have plenty of food and everything else available to them there. We have Morgan and his group, Danny, and all the others moving back into their homes in, let's call it Morganville. Sarge and his group taking over the cabins that Morgan and his group are evacuating from to return home. We have this relationship developing between Fred and Eric. We have another relationship that is the very beginnings of it, right at the end of the book, between Kay, who is the head of the kitchen at the DHS camp, and Sarge, believe it or not. So Sarge and Kay are kind of, and she's taking care of him. She's taking care of his wounds and treating him like a spoiled puppy. So he's kind of getting a kick out of that. So that's the second relationship we see kind of coming together. So we have those two relationships beginning to happen. So now we have two more single women who are probably going to develop relationships. I've read through book 10, so I don't want to give too much away. But we do have two other single females who are about ready to probably enter into relationships. You can probably guess one of them. Mary is an attractive young Black female. Thad, of course, has lost his wife and son, and he is a very strong 6'4", 6'5" Black male. Very friendly guy, just a very lovable character throughout the entire 4 books thus far. So you can see that one and how it's probably going to relate. somebody who needs a strong figure and somebody who is strong who needs a companion. And you see that how that's probably going to develop. We still don't have any idea at all what's going to happen to Jess, if anything. Now, remember, in book 3, she was raped. So that's going to be some traumatic brain injury, as far as, some traumatic thoughts about what has happened in the past. And that could cause some reluctance to any kind of relationship in the future. So that's kind of where we are at the end of book 4. And so now they're moving back. So what do you think book 5 is going to be? Book 5 is going to be Resurrecting Home, or how they rebuild the homes that were destroyed by all the people who were walking through the Golden Horde as they evacuated from southern Florida. So let me catch up with chat and see if anybody has any other comments or additions or comments about the book so far. When I was at Fort Meade, Maryland, the first time that I hunted squirrel was right outside of Fort Meade in Odenton, Maryland. There was a wooded area. And I bought a shotgun so I could go hunting for squirrel. And we ate squirrel at Fort Meade. And this was in 1972. Yeah, my upstairs neighbor was a helicopter mechanic. I was working at NSA. He was a helicopter mechanic. And he taught me how to hunt squirrel, how to dress it. And basically, everything just peels right off. Once you make the initial incision, everything just peels right off. You have to break its legs off, and 4 legs when you get down to that point of pulling the skin off. But it's basically undressing a squirrel is what it is. And then of course he fried them, so everything was deep fat fried and breaded and then fried. So that's how we did it there. I believe that's correct. That's what they were talking about in the book, was a certain type of, almost like a cattail, that could be used as a semi-absorbent / abrasive material to be used for personal hygiene. Yes. So so I have both. I don't have a 410, although there is a fantastic, I think it's Henry makes it. I'm not 100% sure. There is an over-under survival rifle that is a 410/22 caliber rifle. So it has the 410 shotgun and the 22 caliber rifle in a double barrel, an over-under barrel. And I believe that's Henry that makes it. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a single shot, both 22 and 410. Perfect for birds, perfect for squirrel, perfect for small animals that you might want to encounter. Now, a 22 rifle is a fantastic small game hunting weapon, and you can get thousands of rounds inexpensively, and they're easy to store and don't take up much space. So yeah, that's a fantastic one. Hello, My Prepper Journey. Welcome. Let me see here. Hemlock is deadly and could be mistaken for Queen's Anne. Wow. Okay. Yep. And so that's one of my I am pretty aware of the foraging in both a high mountain forest as well as in a desert. But here in this semi-arid, semi-desert, this is a transition zone between East Texas, where it's pine trees and rose bushes and everything else. And so we have prickly pear here and mesquite and scrub oak and native Texas oak. And then we start into the pecan area here in this transition area. This was, believe it or not, just east of here was the highest producing cotton land in the U.S. And then this one congressman bought up all the land around there and convinced Congress to fund building a lake, Granger Lake. And so that Granger Lake now covers some of the most valuable cotton land in the U.S., and it's all underwater now. But of course, all that land he bought up made him a multi-millionaire because it was now lakeside property. So let me see. So, little known prepper. Here's something I want you to think about, and because I love fishing as well, uh, both for panfish as well as for bass and catfish. As a matter of fact, only about 3 miles from here, on the San Gabriel River, they had the largest catfish ever caught on the San Gabriel River, and so I want to break that record. But anyhow, and then you got Granger Lake, and then you've got Georgetown Lake up here. You've got uh, we've got a couple of really good streams. Colorado River is only about 12 miles away, and it's been dammed up, so that's pretty good. That's real good fishing on the Colorado River. So we have really good fishing around here. However, what I would like for you to consider is, I've got some really good stuff. I've got some Abu Garcia. I've got some professional stuff I bought from a friend of mine who's a professional competition bass fisherman. He sold me 4 of his rods and reels for $100, and probably the reels alone are worth $100 each, let alone the rods. But do we really want to sit on the bank of a river or lake casting for fish all day long, or would it be better to learn? And the Boy Scout manual shows how to do it, to build a trap, or would it be better to net fish? And so I think that might be a more efficient use of our time, to either trap fish in fish traps, or to net them, than it will be to fish like you and I are traditionally accustomed to. And plus, we're going to be a target if we sit there all day fishing, even though there's no restrictions. So I can put probably a dozen rods in the water at one time, and there aren't going to be any rangers to check my license or tell me that I have too many lines out there. But that's I think it's going to be, nets are going to be far more valuable than will typical fishing. Hi, Rip Curl Readiness. Welcome, welcome. Chapa makes, let me see what we got here. Dan H. Chapa makes something. Oh, I'm probably talking about the over-under rifle, shotgun. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Springfield M6 Scout. Okay, good, good. When I was growing up, when I was in high school, my senior year, Ruger came out with this pistol carbine combination. It was 44 Magnum. I think it was the Red Hawk, Ruger Red Hawk 44 Magnum, along with Canadian Prepper is saying that Russian troops are heading into Moldova. And of course, he's reporting what I reported at the very up top, that Poland has strengthened its borders, so that with both Belarusia as well as with Kaliningrad, Russia. So it looks like things are going to heat up here on the 1-year anniversary of the live fire training exercise that the Russians are conducting. Yeah, my wife doesn't even like me being on YouTube. She's afraid that people will try to find where we live, and so. And my daughter told me there are certain things I'm not allowed to show on YouTube, and so I respect their opinions and try to keep that. So even being here is can be considered dangerous, and so here's a thought for you. How much have you heard about the Crips and the Bloods in the last 10 to 12 years? So if you'll remember, the Crips and the Bloods were the two black gangs, ghetto gangs, that really controlled the inner cities of most inner cities, and had violent conflict with each other. Then in California, you had the Saldaños and Norteños, the Northern Chicano gang versus the Norteños versus the Saldaños, which were the Southern Mexico or Southern California Mexican gang, Mexican ancestry gang. Haven't heard too much about those either. Have you ever asked yourself why? It's because the Sinaloa cartel and others have taken over drug distribution in most major cities. And so the cartels have shut out all of our typical gangs and the preeminence that they had in the past. And so that's going to be quite concerning for us. But yes, and so the Boy Scout manual, as a matter of fact, I have two Boy Scout field books, the 1945 version. And probably I will give one of those away as a drawing gift when I get to 25,000 or 50,000 subscribers. Right now, I'm trying to get to 5,000. I'll be happy to get there. And so, I mean, we'll see what happens as we get there. Maybe a little bit more exposure here and there. Maybe changing my personality to a better personality. Yeah, so MS-13 is the one that really scares me. That is the Marisa Patucha gang from El Salvador, and they are wicked, cruel. They use machetes to hack people to death, and I mean they're just wicked, cruel. And but I haven't heard that much about them either since the cartels have taken over. So I wonder if they have been incorporated into the cartels and doing some of the army, let's call it, work for the cartels, enforcement work. that is a high probability. But those are the things we have to take into consideration. That's the thing that we're talking about here in Book 4. Those are the people who came through after Morgan and the others left their homes and went into the cabins, the safety of the cabins, and then moved back. So those are the type of people that we got to worry about. The two kinds. Number one is going to be the Golden Horde. The people who are evacuating and don't know where they're going and don't know what they're going to do and don't have anything to take with them. They haven't prepared, so they don't have food, water, anything else. So you're going to have to prepare for that. You're going to be challenged by people. That's why I just recently did a video on the Kelly kettle. And that's why I think that, having things like that along with the safe heat alcohol burner that you can use in this Kelly kettle. And then you can boil your water and have things like Mountain House food or nutrient survival or I've been a distributor with them for 14 years and I can't think of the name. Thrive Life. God, boom, senior moment. Thrive Life and Harmony House and Algerson Farms and things like that. You want to be cooking those inside your house so that the odor both of the fire as well as the odor of the food cooking are not smelled by people around you. What you want to be as discreet as possible. So here's the theory, and Morgan and his group kind of followed this theory. You don't want people to come too close to your abode because you don't want them to discover what you have and what you don't have. So consider what's called ingress. Consider the routes of ingress, or how can people come into your area. Block those off. Don't allow people access to come in. Also consider egress. So how are you going to get out in case there's a horde comes in that overwhelms your gate or your control system? So how will you get out? Thank you, LG. And so, you've got to control those. You got to control those against the hordes. Now, one of the things that Chris is very good at in this book, we also saw the same thing that happened in the Stonemont series, is our sense of justice now is going to go back 150 years when SHTF. And so What we find is you don't punish people, because when you punish people, they want to get retribution and punish you more than you punish them. We don't want to ostracize people. So when you send, and we saw that in, I think it was in the Stonemont series, book two, where the guy was caught stealing, and so they broke his hand and sent him out of the camp. And the first thing he did was look for somebody to sell information about what was available in the camp. And unfortunately, he sold it to people who were seeking help and didn't want to invade the camp, and they became allies of Wyatt and his group instead of opponents invading it. But that could have turned just the other way, just as easy. Somebody that you ostracize could go out and sell you out to the other people. So justice is going to be quick, and it's going to be total. And they do talk about building stocks and chaining people up in stocks and kind of belittling them that way. But you're going to have to consider, how are you going to handle discipline? And there's going to be an awful lot of violence in a post-apocalyptic world. I was watching Alaska Prepper earlier today, and he had a video on where he is quoting a fellow who has put out a paper, and he says that, if we go into financial collapse or anything else, there will be civil war, and there is a possibility the entire United States will split. We could get into a major race war. We could get into civil war. We could get into, that would be ideological. We could get into an economic war, the haves versus the have-nots. But he sees there being all kinds of adversity happening inside our country, which is why I think, taking some of the lessons that we're learning in these books, and how to forage and how to trap and how to shoot and how to cook, how to make do with minimal stuff, is going to be quite essential for our overall survival in the future. Thank you, LG. I appreciate that too, and thank you for putting up this link. Fantastic job. Thank you. I tell you, don't I have fantastic moderators? I mean, gosh, I wish there was a way I could take them out and buy them lunch. They are just so doggone good. Yes, and so in the military, we have what we call observation posts. So during the daytime, with binoculars and things like that, you can see quite a distance. And so you're looking for things that are going to be indicators that people are coming towards you. At nighttime, sound travels a lot further than it does during the daytime. So you have what are called listening posts, or LPs. And so the listening post, now we've kind of combined the two into an OPLP, an observation post, listening post. And that's been further enhanced. If you don't have one, you can get a monocular, a light amplifying monocular, for around $100, or you can spend a lot of money and get really good light amplifying binoculars for about $500. But that way you have the ability to scan and see things, and it's going to pick up thermal imaging and things like that. So earpieces or any kind of sound amplification system for an early warning at nighttime will be phenomenally fantastic. Any kind of a light amplification system, as far as a monocular or a binocular, is going to be phenomenal for night systems. I don't know. I think I showed you all one of my hunting rifles, my pig hunting rifle, but I have a boar hunting rifle, and I primarily use it just for boar, and we use it in low light conditions. So I have a low light or a no light scope on it, a crossfire scope on it, and it's battery operated, but that allows me to get thermal imaging on my 308, on my Ruger Gunsight Scout. On my Gunsight Scout, it's a bolt action hunting rifle, and so I do have thermal imaging on my hunting rifle, and that's because pigs are most active actually during dusk, dawn, and right before it gets really, really dark, but they don't like to be out too much in the heat. So that's so if you can get a good thermal imaging system or night vision system for your weapon system, that would be top notch as far as protection. But batteries. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm converting over all of my AA and AAA battery flashlights and light systems and everything else over to rechargeable NiCad batteries or lithium ion batteries that I can recharge with a solar system and just a USB port. So I am trying to change all that over as well, and so that I'm not that dependent upon batteries. If you are dependent upon AA's and AAA batteries, make sure you get a small solar system. You can get one. You can get a small solar recharger for batteries and stuff on Amazon for around $40 or $50, and then get a recharging station that you plug into that, and you can recharge your magnesium. I believe it's magnesium rechargeable AA's and AAA's, and that would do you fantastic. Oh, did I miss a good question here from Little Lone Prepper? Okay, that's that one we're working on now. So yes, if you can get hearing aids or anything like that that's going to amplify sound coming in to let you know that there's people moving in, that's great. Um, you can also use a lot of early warning devices. So typically that's going to be something like a piece of a fishing line or the inside of a paracord or something like that stretched between two stakes. And then you can do something as simple as a used aluminum can that you got your peas or corn or green beans out of with a couple pebbles or marbles or anything that's going to move around and clank on the inside. And then you set that, 6 to 12 inches off the ground so that as people are walking along, they trip over it, they kick it, and it makes, that rattling noise and everything else. There's also some systems you can buy on Amazon, I believe, that take a 12 gauge shotgun shell. So what you do is you put a stake in the ground over here with one end of the line, run it over to another one, and that's the trip line, and then it's got a spring activated firing pin that goes up and activates a shotgun shell. So what it does is it shoots a shotgun shell. Now you could do it safely and aim the shotgun shell up in the air, or you could also point it at the tripwire so that somebody who trips over the tripwire gets shot by the shotgun shell. Your choice. In a post SHTF environment, I'm going to say there's probably not going to be anybody saying, "Hey, that's illegal. You can't do it." So yeah, great idea. Go for it. In my recommendation or my opinion. So what happens is, if you have you seen the pictures of the Navy SEALs when they go into a room at night, or if you look at when they went in to get Osama bin Laden, they had these things on their helmet that they put down. Okay, and then what that does is that's a light amplifying system. Or a night vision device is another way of calling that. And so what it does is it's going to take either thermal rays, which is what the Navy uses, where they're actually seeing thermal radiation from the body heat, and that shows up a different color than everything else, or a darker green, and that shows them bodies and things like that. Or what it can do is they call them moonlight devices is another name for them. So as long as you have moonlight and the moon is coming down into your system, it's going to take whatever you're looking at and amplify it so that it looks like you're looking at it during a full moon. So that you're able to see a little bit better than you're not going to be able to see like daylight, but it's going to be almost like you were looking at it during a full moon. So you'll be able to discern bodies, people, movement, especially. Now, you do realize, I hope, here's another critical thing I want you to understand is the rods and cones in your eyes. So, and I forget which is which. I think it's the rods look ahead, and that's what you're going to primarily use for color in daytime, and the cones kind of open up your peripheral vision, and that's what you're going to primarily use at nighttime. So during the nighttime, you don't have that much color. Everything's black and white. So your rods looking directly at something is not going to give you good vision. What you want to do is constantly be moving your head and changing your vision, and you're going to see things at night better out of your peripheral vision than you are going to be by looking directly at it. So always look around whatever you want to see at night, and that's going to give you a better indication of what it is, and you can see it a little bit clearer. Yes, and that's exactly it. Night vision binoculars. Oh, wow, that's great, Dan. I'd like to know where you got that. I have plenty of Kim lights. I bought them up. They have Kim lights on sale at Walmart all the time. Uh, for kids during the 4th of July and New Year's, for parents to buy those in lieu of uh, sparklers. So I always load up on lots of Kim lights when those go on sale after the 4th of July and after New Year's. So that would be a fantastic thing and that's another thing that would be. Now the only thing is it's not going to be that great during the daytime. So you're going to have to be visual during the daytime. But okay, anything else anybody has concerning this book or the characters or development, or what do you think is going to happen in the next book? Okay, I'll have to check that out and just look up tripwire systems. And yeah, gosh, my wife is already upset at how much money I spend on Amazon. Oh, you know what I just got? A good friend of mine, Roman Kaczynski, owns Mira Safety. And I did not realize how big of a company it has become over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. So I sent him a text and I said, "Hey, Roman, do you have anything like an affiliate program? Because I'd like to start selling your Israeli gas masks." And so he said, "Yeah, we got an affiliate program. We'll get you hooked up." So he put me over with this affiliate manager, and I am now an affiliate with Mira Safety. And so the affiliate manager said, "Hey, Lee, have you seen our um, vegetable and fruit decontamination system, nuclear fallout washing system, washing machine?" I said, "No, I haven't." And so she says, "Well, we have one for $369. We're going to send you one if you will evaluate it and show it on your channel." So I'm going to. I just got the box delivered to me just before we started this. It's sitting right there. Haven't even opened it yet. I'll probably do a box opening and initial impressions, and we'll take a look at it and do a little bit more in depth on it. Now, one of the things that I did get today. I just want to make sure everybody understands the difference among the three different things. And I talk about it in my history of fallout shelters video that I put out yesterday. But there's a Geiger counter. So that's used for small amounts of radiation. Okay. So once you get under, say, 2 rads an hour, you want to switch over from a survey meter to a Geiger counter, because then you're going to get extremely accurate amounts of what the radiation level is. So I had a Geiger counter, but if it's over 2 rads an hour, it's just going to say 2 rads an hour. So I don't know whether it's 2 or 300. By the way, 300 is fatal. 600 is actually fatal. 300, you get nuclear radiation sickness, and has like a 50% fatality rate. But anyhow, so I needed something to tell me, okay, it's over 2, but how much over 2? So I needed a survey meter. So mine just arrived. I got it from Amazon. It just arrived in the mail from Amazon, and so now I have the radiation survey meter for over 2 rads an hour. I have the Geiger counter for under 2 rads an hour. I have dosimeters for me and my wife and my daughter and my son-in-law and my grandchildren. So what a dosimeter does is, and in, oh gosh, which one was that? Oh no, it was talking about the history um, of the fallout shelters, and Hello Tofu just put up a link, I believe, for it. Yes, she did. So if you watch that, in one of the videos that I link in the description, there's a guy at, I think it's the 4 minute and 40 second mark, who's looking into what looks like a pin like. So you see him in the background. He's doing one of these things with this tube that looks like a pin. That's an individual dosimeter. So you wear it just like a pin on your pocket, and it measures the overall accumulated dose of radiation that you have received. So, you're okay until you get up to that 200 rads total consumption. And once you get up to 200 rads total consumption, you don't want any more. Okay, you just don't want any more. So you want to try to keep that down low. And so that's what a dosimeter does, is it just measures individual radiation. Now, if you go to the website KI, and that's two letters, the number 4, and then U, the letter U. So it's just 4 digits, KI4U .com. What he has done was he bid and bought all of the radiation survey meters, all of the Geiger counters, and all of the dosimeters that were in the shelters that have been shut down, all of the fallout shelters throughout the U.S. that were run by Department of Homeland Security. So he bought all those, and he's recalibrating them and rebuilding them and everything else and selling those. So if you want to get, and there's a great introductory package, and I think it's a survey meter, a Geiger counter, 2 or 4 dosimeters, and then he's also got some dosimeters that are cards that you can put in your wallet. So that's going, and then it changes color based upon the amount of radiations you've received. He's got a copy of Nuclear War Survival Skills, which is a phenomenal book, and I think that whole kit is for like $650. But it's a phenomenal kit. I strongly recommend. I don't get anything by recommending it to you. I just think it's a great kit. If you're concerned about nuclear warfare, that would be a great kit to have. So let me see here. Yeah, and he's got book 11 out, and I purchased it. I have not yet read it. He told me that book 12 will be out in the next couple months. I was chatting online with Steve Smith, and he is in final edit of his book 6, so we can expect his book 6 to be. And he announced the name of that book 6, on our channel. So we were very privileged to have him show us the title of his book as well as the cover of his book. That's that free thing I got from Mira Safety on the vegetable and fruit decontamination system.
Is that what just came when the dogs were
That's what the dogs were barking about. And so I was explaining to my wife what this box is sitting here on the coffee table or on the kitchen table. So anyhow, we were very privileged that he did that on our channel. So thank you, Steve, for that as well. So let me see here. Okay. Yes, I strongly recommend getting all 11 so far of A American or Chris's books on the Survivalist series. I recommend all 5 of the Stonemont series. I'm reading one right now. Somebody had recommended Franklin Horton. And so I'm reading the one I wanted to read. I went to his website and he says, don't read that one first. He said, that's actually book 3. This is book 1. So, do book 1 and book 2. That character is introduced in book 2. And then you can go to that one as kind of book 3, because at that point, there's kind of a why in the story. So Locker 9 series goes one direction and this other one goes this other direction. And, but they're parallel. Just looking from different points of view. So far, I am fairly impressed with this one. Then I have one other series that I want to start reading here very soon, and that's this one, the Black Autumn series by Jeff Kirkham. He's the owner of Black Rifle Coffee Company. He's an ex-Special Forces trooper. So that's going to be interesting. I'm fairly certain he's going to put things in from a Special Forces perspective. Oh, okay, great. CM6M, okay. And that's got the side filter, the screw-in NATO filter, so that's going to be fantastic. I think you'll like it. Don't forget to order extra filters. One of the things that people forget is most filters can only be used for 6 to 8 hours once they're exposed to an agent, because that as it comes in and it filters all that bad stuff out, it clogs up the pores of the filter. And so once it gets difficult to breathe, you're going to have to change your filter. And that's usually going to be, depending upon the level of contamination, it can be anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. So don't forget to get extra filters as well. You are on top of it. Thank you so much. You're just a fantastic moderator. I owe you a dinner somehow or other. I need to get it to you. Okay, so how long have we been on here? Let me see here. Let me get rid of Canadian Prepper. Prepper Dog is talking about a catastrophic cascading failure. And it looks like, I don't know how long we've been on here, 1 hour and 5 minutes. So does anybody have anything else? Don't forget, next month, the last Thursday of the month, we'll be talking about Resurrecting Home by Chris, Angry American. His channel, Angry American, right here on YouTube. You can get a chance to interface with him. Just phenomenal. He and his wife, Mel, do an hour-long live once a week, and you can catch on that and just ask him almost anything you want to. He loves talking about his books. Steve Smith has a channel here on YouTube. He puts out something almost daily, and that's Integrative Preparedness. So I recommend both of those channels to you. So do me a favor, everybody. Remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Let me get Exodus. I almost forgot my Exodus quote for you. At my age, you don't memorize stuff anymore. There's this plug that you pull out of the side of your head, and just all the knowledge you used to have kind of just seeps out while you're sleeping. And so, it's impossible to memorize anything new. That's just one of those things that you've got to. Oh, really? A 4th book in the 1 Second After series coming out soon, called 5 Years After. Oh, wow. Okay, so and I'm trying to get a hold of Bill Forsaking. We had on Toolman Tim out of Canada, and Toolman Tim got me in contact with Chris, the Angry American, and he's trying to get me in with Bill Forsaking so I can have Bill Forsaking come on and do an interview as well. So, and then he's got one other he's going to try to hook me up with. So evidently Toolman Tim has a lot of authors that he's really in tight with. So yes, Chris said that anytime that, so Dan is asking, will Chris come back to the channel? And I have his phone number. I can text him at any time. He said he would be willing to come back at any time and do a review either on any of his books or just be on live with us to discuss any of his books, or just as a guest to discuss anything. Don't forget that we are also doing his nonfiction book on Tuesday nights. So Chris and Alan Kay wrote Decline and Decay. So every Tuesday night we do 2 chapters out of this book, because this is basically a prepper manual. And so next week we just did EDC and shelter. Next week is water and fire. So those will be the 2 things we're discussing on Tuesday night with the Tuesday Night Book Club. So that's kind of where we are. And Chris said he would be willing to come back and talk about either series, the nonfiction or the fiction. And he would also just be willing to come back and just take questions and answers. So yes, we can get him back, and he is willing to come back. Okay, so Exodus chapter 6. Verse 24, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Thank you for the best moderators on YouTube. And what a great group of people we have. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments in the chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget at the end, come back and make a comment about this video, because that helps with the algorithms. I think we have 6 people watching right now. I'd like to get that up to a dozen, maybe 10, 12. But, and if you will come back and do a comment in the once it's released, which should be in about an hour, then that's going to help the algorithm an awful lot and get a lot more people to see it. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Take care, because togetherness is the key. You all have a wonderful evening, and thank you for being here. Bye-bye.